Hey everyone, CJ here. Gonna do a little quick video that shows what I did for my Halloween themed pocket letter that I made for the pocket letter swap over on scrapbook.com. I hope you enjoy it. After picking out the pattern papers I wanted to use, I decided I wanted to back them all with black cardstock. So I'm just here cutting them up into the standard 2.5 by 3.5 inch sizes. And to keep them from getting lost, I just shove them in the pockets real quick. I cut my pattern paper 2 3/8 by 3 3/8 inches so that when it was on top of the black cardstock, it would just leave a little ring around it. I have all my papers picked out. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do to decorate everything with, and I finally decided on some orange rickrack, some Tim Holtz trimmings, and some copper thread that I'm going to use to sew around all of the cards and to sew the trimmings and rickrack onto the edge of the page protector. For my shaker card, I'm using some chunky glitter glass from Renee Bouquets, some glass micro beads from Renee Bouquets, and a packet of star sequins from Studio Calico. Now I'm off to go sew everything together. Here you can see the stitching. I used black thread for the underside, and there's the copper thread in my shaker card, and I used a decorative stitch. There it is, decorative stitch along the edge, and I cut the Tim Holtz trimmings a little bit long because I wanted to fray the ends. Now it's time for me to start working on the embellishments I wanted to use. Most of them are stamped. Some of them I had dies for. Some of them I had to fussy cut. The ones I'm stamping right now with the Simon Says stamp embossing ink and the Halloween Tim Holtz foam stamps, I had to fussy cut, so that might be why there's not more of them. After I stamped them, I used Midnight Copper embossing powder from Lindy's Game. And when I did it, I did 2 layers of embossing, which is why my stamp platform works so great. It's so easy to stamp on top of where I just stamped. My next set of stamping I did was using the Tim Holtz set of entomology stamps. I didn't know exactly how many bugs I may or may not use, so I just sort of filled it up. That's a piece of scrap watercolor paper that I had. And this part didn't have to be perfect because I'm going to be coloring them in. So I just stamped enough with the Ranger ink to give me something to go on, like an outline, because I'm going to be coloring in with some of my distress crayons. Those are I made those cards when I got all the crayons, so I'd always know what I was looking at. So I just started coloring in. I used old paper. I used old paper in the wings, and I used black, walnut stain, carved pumpkin, seedless preserves, and twisted citron to color in all of the various ones. And I didn't care about being pretty because I was going to be die cutting them, and I embossed on top of them after they were colored and after they were dried. I used the Simon Says Stamp embossing ink and the Lindy's Midnight Copper embossing powder again for the outlines of my insects. I set my paper aside with my stamped insects on it to make sure that it was going to be all the way dry, so the embossing powder wouldn't stick where it doesn't belong. And while I let that finish drying, I filled in the non-embossed parts on the stamped images that I had fussy cut out with hauntingly purple and ghoulishly green glitter glass from Rene Bouquets. Okay, I'm finished drying the embossing powder, or heating the embossing powder on my insects. There you can see them, they're all ready to die cut. Like I said, going outside the lines wasn't a problem. You can see how they're going to look, basically. From this point on, mostly what you're going to see is me working out what I want to use, how I want it arranged. If there's anything of note, I'll come back. Otherwise, enjoy the watching. Okay, I'm about to mix vintage beeswax baked texture with some of the hauntingly purple and the ghoulishly green glitter glass, a little bit of the midnight copper embossing powder, and the ultra thick embossing powder. And it's to coat the apothecary bottles that I had die cut. I figured the glass would be held in by the embossing powders, so I put on a thick layer of embossing ink just to help hold it. And I'm really happy with how it came out. I've finally made it to the last 2 cards that needed to be done, and I decided that the background needed a little something more. So I used a Tim Holtz Halloween stencil with some black soot distress oxide, some of the same mix I used on the apothecary bottles, and added the chevron pattern to their backgrounds. I used another Halloween Tim Holtz stamp to make some spiders that are going to go on these cards. I added an all over second layer of my embossing mix onto the cards and onto the spiders. And after those were done, I started assembling my final cards. About right here, I decided there was too much shine, and I still had some of that mix left. I didn't want to waste it all, so I put some Mod Podge down, and then I just sprinkled my embossing powder mix on it, and I didn't heat it. I just let it dry in those areas just to give a little bit of a duller contrast without really being overpowering to the rest of the card.